Jinha sat alone in the dimly lit diplomatic chamber, his eyes fixed on the large screen before him. The room felt cold despite the climate controls. Outside, Earth's Geneva spaceport bustled with activity, but inside, a heavy silence hung in the air. The screen flickered to life. The face of Drek, the Ardaxian ambassador, appeared. His gray skin looked almost metallic under the harsh lights of his ship. His four eyes blinked in different patterns, a sign of amusement among his kind. Representative Jinha, Drek said, his translator converting the clicks and hisses of his native tongue into flat English. I trust you have reviewed our latest communication. Jinha nodded stiffly. I have. And I find it unacceptable. Jinha's voice remained calm, but his hands hidden beneath the table had curled into tight fists. The Proxima B colony is recognized under Article 7 of the Consortium Charter. 30,000 humans live there. We've spent 15 years making it habitable. Drek's upper eyes narrowed while his lower ones widened, the Ardaxian expression of dismissal. The charter has been updated. Your colony falls under new resource priority guidelines. Updated without human input, Jinha pointed out. Your species holds observer status in the consortium. Input was not required. Drek's mandibles clicked rapidly. The humans on Proxima B will be relocated within 30 Earth days. Compensation will be provided as outlined in Section 12. Jinha leaned forward. Ambassador Drek, this is the third human colony your consortium has seized in 5 years. We've been patient. We've followed your rules. We've traded fairly. But this crosses a line. Lines change, Representative Jinha. The galaxy changes. Species must adapt or... Drek paused, his translator searching for the right word. Make way. Jinha thought of the reports sitting in his secure tablet, the ones showing how the Ardaxians had systematically pushed humanity back from every promising star system. How trade agreements always seemed to shift in the consortium's favor. How human technological advances were quickly copied while alien breakthroughs remained closely guarded. For 200 years since first contact, humanity had played nice. They had bent to alien demands, accepted unfair terms, and smiled through insults, all to maintain peace, all to prove they belonged among the stars. The decision is final, Drek continued. We expect a smooth transition. Resistance would be unfortunate. Jinha looked directly into the camera. Ambassador, please understand that I have tried everything diplomatic to resolve our differences. I have spent my career building bridges between our species. Your efforts are noted, Drek said dismissively. But there's something you should know about humans. Jinha continued as if Drek hadn't spoken. We have a breaking point. Drek's mandibles stilled. Is that a threat, Representative? No, Ambassador. It's a fact of biology. Push any living thing too far, and it will eventually push back. Humans have been pushed for 2 centuries. We've been patient. We've been understanding. We've been nice. Jinha stood up slowly. But we're done being nice now. Drek's upper eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of surprise. What exactly are you saying? I'm saying that humanity formally rejects the consortium's claim to Proxima B. We reject the reclassification of our status, and we reject the authority of a body that treats its members as resources to be harvested. Drek's translator struggled to keep up with his rapid clicks. This is highly irregular. Your species lacks the standing to... We're not asking for permission anymore, Ambassador. Jinha's voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath it now. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from all agreements with the Galactic Consortium. Drek's four eyes widened in what might have been shock or amusement. It was hard to tell with Ardaxians. This is absurd. Your species cannot survive without consortium protection. The trading routes, the technology exchanges, the defense pacts, you need us. Jinha smiled for the first time. It wasn't a friendly smile. That's where you're wrong, Ambassador. We never needed you. We wanted to work with you. There's a difference. Your primitive fleets would be destroyed in days if you stand alone. Drek's voice rose, his translator adding electronic distortion to his anger. Perhaps, Jinha acknowledged. If we fought the way you expect us to fight. A light blinked on Jinha's wrist device. A message from Earth Command. Thermopylae authorized. Jinha took a deep breath. 200 years of playing by alien rules was about to end. Humanity had prepared for this day in secret, developing technologies and strategies the consortium knew nothing about. They had hidden their true capabilities, appearing weaker and more dependent than they were. Ambassador Drek, please inform the Consortium Council that as of this moment, humanity stands independent. Any attempt to seize Proxima B or any other human settlement will be considered an act of war. Drek's mandibles clicked rapidly, and what humans had learned was laughter. War? You declare war on the Consortium? On 27 spacefaring civilizations with technologies centuries beyond your own. This is not courage, Representative Jinha. This is suicide. Jinha's expression didn't change. You've never understood us, have you? Not really. You see, our physical form, smaller and weaker than our Daxians, and you think you know our limits. You study our history, filled with internal conflicts, and you think you know our nature. We understand enough, Drek said dismissively. Your species is young, emotional, and divided. You lack the unity of purpose that defines truly advanced civilizations. Jinha shook his head slowly. What you call emotional, we call passionate. What you see as division, we know as diversity. And as for unity, he paused, looking down at the confirmation message on his wrist. Humans unite very quickly when threatened. These are just words, Drek said. Empty threats from a species that has reached too far, too fast. No, Ambassador, these aren't threats. This is a promise. Jinha's voice dropped lower. Humanity stopped being nice today. Remember that you chose this path, not us. Before Drek could respond, Jinha cut the transmission. The screen went dark, reflecting Jinha's grim expression back at him. He opened a secure channel to Earth Command. General Kwan's face appeared, his expression as serious as Jinha's own. It's done, Jinha said simply. Kwan nodded. Protocol Thermopylae is active. Our agents are in position throughout Consortium space. The stealth fleet has deployed. First strikes will commence in 6 hours. Any chance they'll back down? Jinha asked, though he already knew the answer. None, Kwan replied. The Ardaxians have already ordered their battle fleets to move toward Proxima B. They think this will be over in days. Jinha thought about the secret preparations humanity had made over decades. The hidden technologies, the sleeper agents, the strategies developed by Earth's best minds for a war against technologically superior enemies. They have no idea what's coming, do they? Jinha said quietly. No, Kwan confirmed. They expect a conventional response. Ships against ships, a desperate last stand at Proxima B. They don't understand that's not how humans fight when our backs are against the wall. Jinha looked out the window at the Earth below. Beautiful, blue, and seemingly fragile. For 2 centuries, humanity had restrained itself, hiding its true potential to maintain peace. That time was over. Then let's show them, Jinha said. Exactly what happens when humans stop being nice. The war began that night. Harin moved through the massive Ardaxian flagship like she belonged there. Her steps were confident but unhurried as she walked down the curved hallway. The ship, named Glory of Ardax, was the pride of the alien fleet, a 15-kilometer behemoth that carried enough firepower to level a continent. No human had ever set foot on such a vessel before. At least not that the Ardaxians knew about. Harin wore the gray-green uniform of a maintenance technician from one of the Consortium's client species. The disguise was perfect, from the slightly hunched posture to the yellowish skin tint applied by nanobots just beneath her epidermis. A small device at her throat altered her voice patterns to match the Trilaxian accent. 3 months had passed since Jinha's declaration and the start of what the aliens were calling the human tantrum. The Consortium had expected a quick surrender after a show of force. Instead, something strange had happened. Nothing. No human fleets had risen to defend Proxima B, no desperate last stands or emotional pleas for mercy. The colony itself had appeared abandoned when Ardaxian forces arrived. All 30,000 colonists seemingly vanished overnight. The consortium called it a victory. Their news networks showed images of Ardaxian flags planted on human worlds. Their leaders made speeches about the swift restoration of order. But in the quiet halls of consortium power, worry had begun to grow. Where had the humans gone? Why had they not fought? What were they planning? Harin knew the answers to these questions. She was part of those answers. She stopped at a maintenance panel and pressed her hand against the scanner. The disguise fooled, the simple security system, which read her as Tralaxian. The panel slid open, revealing a tangle of cables and control systems. "Maintenance access confirmed," said the ship's computer in the clicking Ardaxian language. Her translator rendered it into English in her ear. Harin pulled a tool from her belt and began working on the systems. To any observer, she was simply performing routine maintenance. In reality, she was installing a highly sophisticated device that would link to the ship's main computer. The neural implant at the base of her skull tingled slightly as it connected wirelessly to the device. Information began flowing directly into her mind: ship schematics, crew rotations, weapon systems, and communication protocols. "I'm in position," she subvocalized, the words picked up by the quantum entanglement communicator hidden in her false tooth. Unlike conventional communications, quantum entanglement couldn't be detected or intercepted. The message traveled instantly across light years without any signal to trace. "Proceed," came Quan's reply from the human stealth carrier lurking at the edge of the system. Harin's fingers moved quickly over the maintenance panel, but her real work was happening through the neural link. Her mind interfaced directly with the ship's systems, bypassing security protocols the Ardaxians believed impenetrable. The aliens had always underestimated humans. They saw them as physically weak compared to the towering Ardaxians. They considered human technology primitive because humans had carefully shown them only outdated systems. They thought human psychology was simple and predictable. They were wrong on all counts. For decades, while smiling and bowing to consortium demands, humanity had been preparing. They had developed technologies in secret: neural interfaces, quantum, computing stealth systems that could hide entire fleets. They had studied alien psychology and biology, finding weaknesses no one knew existed. And they had placed people like Harin throughout consortium space, sleeper agents waiting for the signal. When Protocol Thermopylae activated, 300 human operatives like Harin had moved into position throughout key consortium installations. Not to fight, but to infiltrate, not to destroy, but to control. Harin finished her work at the panel and closed it. The device she'd installed was now linked to every system on the massive warship. Through it, she could access everything from life support to weapons. She checked her wrist display, which showed a simple maintenance schedule. According to the ship's systems, she was just a low-level technician doing routine work. No one would question her presence in any part of the vessel. Harin made her way toward the central computer core. As she walked, she passed Ardaxian crew members who barely glanced at her. Client species like the Tralaxians were practically invisible to the proud Ardaxians. Useful tools, nothing more. That arrogance was about to cost them everything. She reached the computer core access room and nodded to the board security guard. Her fake credentials passed another scan, and the door slid open. Inside, massive quantum processors hummed quietly, managing the thousands of systems that kept the enormous ship functioning. Harin approached the main terminal and began another maintenance routine. Through her neural link, she uploaded the A virus that would corrupt the Ardaxian battle network. The code was elegant and vicious, designed to spread throughout the connected consortium fleet, lying dormant until activated. "Package delivered," she subvocalized to Quan. "Confirmed," came the reply. "All agents report similar success. We are at 97% coverage of primary targets." Harin allowed herself a small smile as she finished her work and left the computer core. The Ardaxians had no idea what was about to happen. They expected humans to fight like Ardaxians, with massive ships and frontal assaults. They expected emotional outbursts and desperate heroics. They didn't understand that humans were apex predators on their home world for a reason. Humans didn't just fight with strength, they fought with cunning. They adapted. They studied their enemies and found weaknesses. And when necessary, they struck without warning or mercy. As Harin made her way to her assigned quarters, she passed a viewing port. Outside, the stars shone brightly against the blackness of space. Somewhere out there, the human fleet waited, not in retreat but in preparation. In her quarters, Harin checked the time. 12 hours until synchronized activation. 12 hours until every major consortium warship, defense station, and command center found itself under human control. She lay on her bunk and closed her eyes, but didn't sleep. Through her neural link, she monitored the virus as it spread silently through the ship's systems. The Ardaxians had built impressive technology, but they'd never faced an enemy that could think inside their machines. Harin thought about Earth, about the home she'd left behind to become part of humanity's silent response. She thought about Jinha's words that had started this war. Humanity stopped being nice today. The consortium had pushed humans too far, believing them weak and compliant. They never understood the human capacity for patience, for waiting and planning and preparing. They never grasped that human kindness was a choice, not a weakness. In 12 hours, the galaxy would learn what happened when humans chose differently. Harin's neural implant pinged with an update from Quan. Timeline accelerated. All agents. Prepare for activation in 6 hours. She sent back a simple acknowledgement and began her final preparations. The Ardaxians had expected a war of ships and weapons. Instead, they were about to face something far more dangerous, a war of information and control. As she worked, Harin remembered an old Earth saying her grandmother had taught her, "The truly dangerous opponent isn't the one who threatens you loudly, it's the one who smiles while studying your weaknesses." Humanity had smiled for 200 years. They had studied, they had learned, and now the smile was gone. Quan stood on the bridge of the HSS Defiance, his eyes fixed on the main display. The stealth carrier hung in space at the edge of the Ardaxian home system, completely invisible to enemy sensors. Around him, the bridge crew worked in near silence, their movements precise and controlled. No one spoke above a whisper, though there was no real need for quiet. Old habits from training died hard. When you spent years preparing for the most important mission in human history, you took no chances. The main screen showed the Ardaxian defense fleet, 200 massive warships arranged in perfect formation around their homeworld. Each ship was a city in space, carrying thousands of crew members and enough weapons to destroy a small planet. By all normal military calculations, the human fleet, just 30 ships, had no chance against such power. But this wasn't going to be a normal battle. "Status report," Quan said quietly. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Park, looked up from her console. "All agents confirm they're in position, sir. Virus deployment at 100%. Awaiting your command to activate." Quan nodded. For 3 months since Jinha's declaration, humanity had been executing the most daring military plan ever conceived. While the consortium believed humans were hiding or retreating, they had actually been infiltrating every major Ardaxian installation. The plan had been decades in the making, developed in secret while humanity smiled and bowed to alien demands. They had hidden their true technological capabilities, appearing weaker than they were. They had studied alien systems, finding weaknesses no one knew existed, and they had trained people like Harin to exploit those weaknesses. "Signal all ships," Quan ordered. "Prepare for Phase 1. Throughout the small human fleet, crews readied themselves. These weren't ordinary military vessels. Each ship carried special forces teams and advanced technology that the consortium had never seen before. Quan checked the time. 5 minutes until the coordinated attack. He thought about how the Ardaxians would see this day in their history books, if they were honest enough to record their complete failure to understand their enemy. "Sir," Park said, breaking into his thoughts, "we're receiving a priority message from Agent Harin on the glory of Ardax." "Put her through," Quan replied. Harin's voice came through clearly on the secure quantum channel. "Commander, we may have a problem. The Ardaxian High Admiral is aboard. He's ordered a full system diagnostic that might detect our virus before activation." Quan frowned. This was an unexpected complication. "How long until the diagnostic completes?" 20 minutes, sir. We can't wait that long. Quan made a quick decision. All agents. This is Commander Quan. We're moving up the timeline. Activate your packages immediately. I repeat, immediate activation. Acknowledgements came in from agents throughout Consortium space. Quan turned to his tactical officer. Bring the fleet to full alert. Prepare to move in once the virus takes effect. On the main screen, the Ardaxian fleet continued its patrol, unaware of what was about to happen. The massive ships moved with precision, their formation a display of power and discipline. Then, one by one, the lights on the alien vessels began to flicker. It's working, Park whispered. Across the Ardaxian fleet, systems began to fail. Weapons went offline, engines shut down, communication arrays stopped transmitting. The perfect formation broke apart as ships drifted, powerless. On the glory of Ardax, Harin watched through her neural link as the virus spread through the ship's systems. Emergency lights flashed as the main power failed. Around her, Ardaxian crew members rushed to stations, trying desperately to regain control of their vessel. They couldn't know that the virus had been designed specifically for their systems, exploiting weaknesses in Ardaxian programming that humans had discovered years ago. It didn't just shut down the ships, it locked the Ardaxians out of their own computers. Harin made her way to the bridge, still in her disguise. No one questioned her presence in the chaos. She found a quiet corner and continued monitoring the virus's progress through her neural implant. The High Admiral stood in the center of the bridge, his four eyes wide with confusion and anger. "Report," he demanded. "What is happening to my fleet?" "Unknown, Admiral," an officer replied, mandibles clicking in distress. "All systems are failing. We can't restore control." "Impossible," the Admiral roared. "This is the most advanced fleet in the galaxy." Harin allowed herself a small smile. The Ardaxians had always believed their technology was superior. They never considered that humans might have leaped ahead while pretending to be behind. Back on the Defiance, Quan watched as the entire Ardaxian defense fleet drifted helplessly in space. "All strike teams move in," he ordered. "Begin Phase 2. The human fleet decloaked and moved toward the disabled Ardaxian ships. From each vessel, smaller craft launched, carrying Special Forces teams. Their mission wasn't to destroy the enemy ships, but to capture them intact. "Sir," Park reported, "we're getting similar reports from across Consortium space. The virus has disabled defense systems on 17 key worlds. Our agents have control of major communication hubs and government facilities." Quan nodded. The plan was working even better than expected. The Consortium had built an interconnected network of ships and stations, believing it made them stronger. Instead, it had allowed the human virus to spread throughout their entire infrastructure. "What about civilian systems?" Quan asked. "Untouched." "Sir," Park confirmed. As ordered, the virus only affected military and government targets. This had been Jin Ha's specific instruction. Humanity wasn't fighting for revenge or destruction. They were fighting for respect, to show the Consortium that humans could no longer be pushed around. Harming civilians wouldn't achieve that goal. The glory of Ardax, Harin received new orders through her neural link. It was time to reveal herself. She took a deep breath, removed the device that altered her appearance, and stepped into the center of the bridge. The yellowish tint faded from her skin, her posture straightened. She stood tall, a human in the heart of the Ardaxian flagship. "What is this?" the High Admiral demanded, seeing her transformation. "A human? Here?" Harin looked directly at him. "Admiral, your ship is now under human control. Your fleet has been neutralized. Across Consortium space, your military installations and government centers have been compromised." "Impossible." The Admiral's mandibles clicked rapidly, and what humans had learned was a sign of extreme agitation. "No species could accomplish this. You never understood us," Harin said simply. "You saw our physical form smaller and weaker than Ardaxians, and you thought you knew our limits. You studied our history, filled with internal conflicts, and you thought you knew our nature." She walked to the main console and placed her hand on it. Through her neural implant, she activated the emergency communication system. Her face appeared on screens throughout the ship. "This is Agent Harin of Earth Special Forces. The glory of Ardax is now under human control. All crew members are ordered to remain at their stations. No harm will come to those who cooperate." Similar messages were being broadcast on Ardaxian ships throughout the fleet as human teams took control. The operation that military experts had called impossible was unfolding with precision and minimal violence. Quan watched from the Defiance as reports came in from across consortium space. Within 2 hours of virus activation, humanity had accomplished what should have taken years of conventional warfare. "Sir," Park said, looking up from her console with amazement in her eyes, "we've secured control of 97% of primary targets. Casualties are minimal on both sides." Quan nodded. "Send word to Earth. Tell Jinha that Phase 2 is complete. The Ardaxian Empire has fallen." The bridge crew exchanged glances of disbelief. The mighty Ardaxians, the dominant military force in the consortium for 3,000 years, had been defeated without a single major space battle. It wasn't just a victory, it was a revolution in warfare. The consortium had expected humans to fight like every other species with ships and weapons and frontal assaults. Instead, humans had fought with intelligence, stealth, and precision. As Quan looked at the disabled Ardaxian fleet on his screen, he thought about what Jinha had said when they planned this operation. "We don't need to destroy them. We just need to show them that they never really knew us at all." That message had now been delivered not with destruction, but with the most complete military victory in galactic history. Jinha stood in the Great Hall of the Consortium, the same chamber where, 3 months earlier, humanity had been declared a protectorate species. The vast room was designed to impress and intimidate, with soaring ceilings that reached 50 meters high and walls made of rare metals from a dozen worlds. Today, the hall was filled with representatives from all 27 species of the Galactic Consortium. They sat in tiered seats that formed a half-circle around the central speaking platform. Jinha stood on that platform now, alone and calm. 3 days had passed since Quan's forces had taken control of the Ardaxian fleet. 3 days since humanity had accomplished what every military expert in the galaxy had deemed impossible. The news had spread quickly across consortium space, causing shock and disbelief. Jinha wore a simple dark suit with no decorations or medals. He needed none. The fact that he stood here in this place was decoration enough. "Representatives of the Galactic Consortium," Jinha began, his voice carrying easily through the hall's perfect acoustics. 3 months ago, in this very chamber, humanity was informed that we had no choice but to surrender our colony on Proxima B. Today, I stand before you to explain why that decision was a mistake. The chamber was silent. Even the normally chatty Vex delegates sat still, their 6 limbs motionless. For 2 centuries, humanity extended its hand in friendship. Jinha continued. "We shared our worlds. We traded fairly. We respected your customs and laws. In return, you exploited our goodwill. You stole our resources. You treated us as lesser beings." He paused, making eye contact with each species representative. "You mistook patience for weakness. You mistook diplomacy for fear. You mistook restraint for inability." Jinha's voice hardened. "That was your mistake." Behind him, a large holographic display activated, showing real-time footage from across consortium space. Human forces controlled key strategic points on dozens of worlds, not through destruction or violence, but through precision, intelligence, and the element of surprise. The images shifted to show the Ardaxian home fleet, 200 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy, now under human control. The once proud vessels were surrounded by much smaller human ships. "Humanity did not want this conflict," Jinha said. "We spent 2 centuries trying to avoid it. But when you threatened our colony, our people, you crossed a line that could not be uncrossed." The Ardaxian representative, a replacement for Ambassador Drek, who had been removed from his position after the defeat, rose to speak. "The human action was an act of war, a sneak attack without proper declaration." Jinha turned to face him directly. "Ambassador, Your predecessor informed me that the seizure of Proxima B was not a negotiation. When one side declares that diplomacy is over, war has already begun. We simply fought that war in our own way. The Ardaxian's mandibles clicked rapidly in anger, but he had no response. He sat down heavily. Some of you may wonder how we accomplished this. Jinha continued. How could humans, a species you considered primitive and weak, defeat the mighty Ardaxian Empire in just 3 days? He walked slowly across the platform. The answer is simple. You never knew us. Not really. You studied our physical form and saw that we were smaller and weaker than Ardaxians, so you assumed we would fight with brute force and lose. You studied our history and saw our internal conflicts, so you assumed we were divided and easy to conquer. Jinha stopped in the center of the platform. What you failed to understand is that humans evolved as adaptable problem solvers. Where other species specialized, we generalized. Where you perfected single strategies, we developed hundreds. Our greatest strength isn't our bodies or even our technology, it's our minds, our ability to imagine the impossible, then make it possible. The holographic display changed again, showing the 30,000 colonists from Proxima B. They hadn't fled in fear as the consortium believed. They had evacuated in an orderly fashion as part of Protocol Thermopylae, moving to hidden facilities where they could wait out the conflict. For decades, while smiling and bowing to your demands, we prepared, Jinha explained. We developed technologies in secret. We studied your systems and found weaknesses. We placed agents throughout your territories. Not because we wanted war, but because we knew this day might come. The representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Many were realizing for the first time just how completely they had underestimated humanity. Now we come to the purpose of this meeting, Jinha said, his tone becoming businesslike. The terms of our new relationship. He pressed a button on his wrist device, and the holographic display showed a document titled, The New Galactic Charter. Humanity does not seek dominion, Jinha stated clearly. We have no desire to rule over others or to extract revenge. But neither will we ever again allow ourselves to be treated as lesser beings. He began to outline the terms. A new galactic charter, with equal representation for all species. Fair trade agreements that benefited everyone, not just the powerful. Mutual defense pacts that protected all worlds, not just those with strategic value. And the immediate recognition of all human colonies, including Proxima B. These terms are non-negotiable, Jinha concluded. But they are also fair. They create a galaxy where cooperation replaces domination, where mutual respect replaces fear, where all species can thrive together. The Vex representative, a six-limbed being known for their logical thinking, rose to speak. And if we refuse these terms, will your forces destroy our worlds as the Ardaxians would have done? Jinha shook his head. No, that is not our way. If you refuse, we will simply withdraw from consortium space entirely. We will take our ships, our technology, and our people, and we will go our own way. He let that sink in before continuing. But consider this carefully. The virus that disabled the Ardaxian fleet could just as easily have destroyed it. The agents who took control of your facilities could have sabotaged them instead. We chose control over destruction. We chose minimal casualties over maximum damage. That choice reveals who we truly are. The chamber fell silent again as the representatives considered his words. Many had expected threats and demands for reparations. Instead, they were being offered partnership, albeit on human terms. The Trilaxian representative from one of the smaller client species that had long suffered under Ardaxian rule stood up. Humanity has shown both great power and great restraint. I, for one, am curious to see what a galaxy of equals might look like. Trilax supports the new charter. One by one, other representatives began to signal their support. Not all. The Ardaxians and their closest allies remained opposed, but enough to form a clear majority. Jinha watched this with quiet satisfaction. This had been the true goal all along, not just to win a war, but to change the galaxy, to create a new order based on respect rather than fear. Representatives of the consortium, Jinha said as the voting concluded, today marks a new beginning for all our species. Humanity stopped being nice when you said we had no choice. Now you understand there is always a choice. He looked around the chamber one last time. Choose wisely. As Jinha stepped down from the platform, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The gamble had paid off. Humanity had secured its place among the stars not through centuries of slow progress, but through 3 days of decisive action. Sometimes, he reflected, you had to stop being nice to be truly heard. 1 year had passed since the day humanity changed the galaxy. 1 year since the 3-day war, as historians now called it. 1 year since Jinha had stood in the Great Hall of the Consortium and offered a new path forward. The sun was setting, over Proxima b, casting long shadows across the colony's central plaza. The air was cool and crisp, carrying the scent of the earth plants that now thrived in the terraformed soil. In the distance, the colony's buildings gleamed in the fading light, their designs a mix of human and alien architecture. Haran stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed diplomatic center, watching as workers below put the finishing touches on what would become the headquarters of the reformed Galactic Alliance. Human engineers worked alongside aliens from a dozen worlds, their differences set aside in service of a common goal. Quite a view, isn't it? Jinha said as he joined her at the railing. Haran nodded. Hard to believe this is the same place the Ardaxians tried to take from us a year ago. Even harder to believe how much has changed since then, Jinha replied. Below, them, an Ardaxian engineer was consulting respectfully with a human counterpart about the placement of a support beam. The scene would have been unimaginable just a year earlier, when Ardaxians viewed humans as barely worth acknowledging. They still don't fully understand us, Haran said, watching the Ardaxians' careful movements. The alien was clearly trying to adapt to human customs, moving more slowly and keeping a respectful distance. They don't need to understand us completely, Jinha replied. They just need to respect us. Footsteps sounded behind them, and they turned to see Quan approaching. The commander had changed in the past year. The hard edge that had defined him during the war had softened somewhat, though his eyes remained as sharp and alert as ever. Sorry, I'm late, Quan said as he joined them at the railing. The security briefing ran long. Any problems? Jinha asked. Quan shook his head. Just the opposite. The joint patrols are working better than expected. Even the Ardaxians are cooperating fully. This was perhaps the most surprising development of the past year. After their defeat, many had expected the Ardaxians to retreat into bitter isolation or to plot revenge. Instead, they had adapted with remarkable speed, accepting the new reality and finding their place within it. I spoke with an Ardaxian military theorist yesterday, Quan continued. He still can't comprehend how we won. Their simulations showed our strategy had a 0.02% chance of success. That's the difference, Haran said softly. They calculate odds. We defy them. The three stood in comfortable silence watching as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Each had played a crucial role in humanity's rise, Jinha with his diplomacy, Quan with his strategy, and Haran with her courage. Together, they had changed the course of galactic history. The new Trilaxian ambassador arrived today, Jinha said after a while. Their government has officially thanked us for ending Ardaxian dominance. Apparently, their worlds are experiencing an economic boom now that trade is fair. And the Vex? Quan asked. Still analyzing everything, Jinha said with a small smile. They've formed 3 different committees to study how humans think. They find us fascinating but confusing. Haran laughed. They should try being human. We confuse ourselves half the time. A comfortable silence fell between them again. Below, the workers were finishing for the day, their tools being packed away as lights came on across the colony. In orbit above, visible as bright moving points against the darkening sky, ships from a dozen worlds moved in peaceful patterns, their courses coordinated by the new Joint Traffic Control System. I received a message from Earth today, Jinha said eventually. The Council has approved the expansion plans, 10 new colonies over the next 5 years. That's ambitious, Quan noted. It is, Jinha agreed. But we've earned the right to be ambitious. More importantly, we've created a galaxy where ambition doesn't have to mean conflict. Harin thought about how different things might have been if the Ardaxians had simply respected humanity's claim to Proxima B. If they had treated humans as equals, rather than as resources to be managed. The war might never have happened. The galaxy might have continued as it had for thousands of years, with the strong dominating the weak. Do you ever regret it? She asked Jinha. Starting the war? Jinha considered the question carefully. I regret that it was necessary, he said finally. I regret that diplomacy failed, but I don't regret standing up for our people. Some things are worth fighting for. And some fights change everything, Quan added. He was right. The 3-day war had transformed not just human standing in the galaxy, but the very nature of galactic politics. The old hierarchies had crumbled. The assumption that military might alone determined a species' worth had been shattered. In their place, a new order was emerging, one based on cooperation and mutual respect. The Ardaxian High Council sent a formal message today, Jinha said. They've officially recognized all human territorial claims and withdrawn their last objections to the new charter. That's a big step for them, Harin noted. Their pride has always been legendary. Pride can be relearned, Jinha replied. They're discovering that there's honor in being part of something fair, even if you don't control it completely. As darkness fell completely, the lights of the colony grew brighter, creating a tapestry of illumination against the night. From this height, the pattern looked like a constellation of stars brought down to the ground, a mirror of the sky above. We never wanted war, Jinha reflected. But when pushed too far, we reminded the galaxy of something they had forgotten. What's that? Asked Harin. Jinha smiled as he looked up at the stars, the same stars that humans had dreamed of reaching for thousands of years. That humans don't just survive against impossible odds, we transform them. It's not just what we do, it's who we are. A shuttle passed overhead, its lights blinking as it descended toward the spaceport. It carried delegates from 3 worlds coming to participate in the planning for the new Galactic Alliance headquarters, former enemies now working together toward a common future. I spoke with some of the colonists today, Quan said. The ones who had to evacuate during the war. They said something interesting. What's that? Jinha asked. They said they feel safer now than they did before the war, not because we won, but because now everyone knows who we really are. Harin understood what they meant. For 2 centuries, humanity had hidden its true capabilities. They had played the role of the junior species, the newcomers still finding their way. That mask had been comfortable in some ways, but it had also made them vulnerable. Now there were no more illusions. The galaxy saw humans clearly, not as conquerors, but as a force that could not be ignored or dismissed. Tomorrow's the official ceremony, Jinha reminded them. The signing of the final charter. All 27 species will be represented. Will there be speeches? Quan asked with a slight grimace. Jinha laughed. Many speeches, very long speeches. The Vex representative alone has prepared a 4-hour address. I think I'll be suddenly called away on urgent business, Quan muttered. Harin smiled as she looked out over the colony, the home that had nearly been lost that had instead become the catalyst for humanity's ascension. Not through brutality or conquest, but through the uniquely human combination of strategic brilliance, technological innovation, and sheer determination. In the growing darkness, the lights of the colony burned like a promise. Humanity had found its place among the stars not by conquest but by refusing to be conquered. Not through cruelty but through the strength to be kind until kindness was no longer an option. The fire that made humans human, that spark of defiance, creativity, and hope, now burned across the galaxy, and the universe would never be the same.